Abortion is legal in Alabama, and it likely will be for the next several years. I understand that may not be clear to everyone after news about Alabama's strictest in the nation abortion law was spread, but despite the passage of that bill, abortion remains very much legal in Alabama. And that can be confusing, so let me explain. The people who passed the abortion law, which applies a blanket ban on abortion for any reason except a medical emergency, have said repeatedly that the point of the bill was to take on the current legal standard on abortion in the U.S., Roe v. Wade. That means they expect it to go through the court system with the goal of taking on Roe v. Wade in the Supreme Court. While the wording of the Alabama abortion ban would have it take effect in November, no one expects that to happen. Plans are already underway by the ACLU and Planned Parenthood to challenge the new law in court, and everyone, even the people who voted for it, expects the court to stop the ban from taking effect prior to November. That's because both the federal district courts and the courts of appeal are all bound by an oath to uphold the standards set forth by the Supreme Court, whether they like it or not. In this case, those standards are established in Roe v. Wade, a landmark court ruling that protects a woman's right to abortion, and another case called Planned Parenthood v. Casey that prevents states from passing laws that cause an undue burden against women attempting to get an abortion. No one can argue that a blanket ban on all abortion is not an undue burden, so the lower courts, again, whether they personally agree or not, are bound by those Supreme Court decisions. And that's not me saying that. That's a federal judge who openly disagrees with the legal standards of Roe v. Wade saying that. In a concurring opinion in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals by Judge Joel Dabena in a case about another, less restrictive Alabama abortion ban, the judge stated that he agreed that Roe v. Wade has no basis in the Constitution, but he concludes by saying, quote, "I am not on the Supreme Court, and as a federal appellate judge, I am bound by my oath to follow all of the Supreme Court's precedents, whether I agree with them or not." Now that was just last year, with again a much less restrictive abortion ban in Alabama. This is an ancient history. That judge is still on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the same court that this new Alabama abortion ban is going to have to go through if it wants to go to the Supreme Court. So you can see why I'm saying it's incredibly unlikely that these lower courts are going to uphold the new law. Now, in that particular case, the bill was stopped from ever taking effect by both lower courts, and lower courts have done the same with hundreds of similar laws in the past few decades. But the goal isn't to get a new verdict in the lower courts, it's to get the new law to the Supreme Court, hoping the newly appointed conservative majority on the court will ultimately kill Roe v. Wade. How likely is that? Well, assuming it ever happens, it would take years, but there's no guarantee that it will ever happen. The Supreme Court is not obligated to hear arguments for the new law at all. And if they don't, whatever the lower courts say stands. Here's an example. Take that less restrictive Alabama abortion law we discussed earlier. That act was signed into law in Alabama in 2016, and the lower courts immediately put an injunction on it, and it never took effect all the way through when the appeals court ruled in 2018. That court shot it down, and the only other option was the Supreme Court. But here we are in 2019, and the Supreme Court has still not decided whether they will even hear that old case, let alone this new one. And I know people who are saying, yeah, but isn't the new Supreme Court supposed to be super conservative with these Trump appointees? But here's the thing, those new conservative Supreme Court justices are on the Supreme Court now, and they still haven't decided on whether they'll hear this old Alabama abortion case. So the makeup of the court is not any kind of guarantee that this new Alabama abortion law will definitely go to the Supreme Court to challenge Roe v. Wade. And even if it did, if you look at the timetable for that old abortion law, it probably wouldn't happen until 2021, 2022, and the whole time abortion would remain legal in Alabama. So to repeat, despite the news, abortion is still legal in Alabama right now. And even the people who voted for the abortion ban don't realistically expect it to take effect anytime in the next few years. I hope that clears up some confusion. I'm Jonathan Sobolewski for Reckon. If you like these videos and like what we're doing on Reckon, you can follow us on Reckon by AL.com on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching.